Most people forget this last and final commandment. If you ask people who have grown up in the church to list the 10 commandments, this is usually the one they have the hardest time figuring out and remembering.
I don't remember. I don't recall.
Don't covet. Part of the reason why is because, what does that even mean? Does covet mean wanting something? Seeing somebody's got a new car and wanting that car?
My Tesla finally came.
Was that a wise purchase?
Is it as simple as that? Does it have to have some element of jealousy or envy? Does covet mean being jealous? Does covet mean I would do anything to own that?
It will be mine. Oh yes, it will be mine.
Does covet mean, honestly, I've said covet too many times and I have no idea what it means anymore. But covet is what we're talking about this week. Hello all, I'm the Mad Pastor, and Christianity sucks, it's boring, it's out of date, it's irrelevant, but it doesn't have to be. Let me explain why. So here we are at last, and our final 10 commandment, the 10th commandment. It is from Exodus chapter 20, verse 17. It's only one verse, so bear with me. Here it goes. You shall not covet your neighbor's house, you shall not covet your neighbor's wife, male or female slave, ox, donkey, or anything that belongs to your neighbor. So very straightforward. Don't covet anything. Nothing that your neighbor has. Not their wife, not their property, nothing. Don't covet anything that your neighbor has. There's just one question. What does the word covet really, really mean? Before we continue, I want to remind you that we, for the foreseeable future, are collecting funds for a group called Zoe Empowers. They quite literally empower communities with skills and entrepreneurial education to make their own businesses and make an economy and a living in their own community. We have been assigned a community in Rwanda, and every dollar you give to this channel goes directly to helping those people. So please use the QR code over here or any of the links down below, or you can mail a check P.O. Box down below to Kindred UMC, and all of that will go to help the people in Rwanda that we are getting to know as we speak. So let's continue. Unfortunately, all the original Hebrew sources that I can find don't have a good, clear definition. It's ultimately rooted in the word that means desire. It's HMD. In this specific verbiage, it's tamod. And so the way that this Hebrew works is there's like a root word, which is HMD, for lack of better Hebrew lettering. And then you add vowels into it and you format it and conjugate it and all this. And so this particular form of that seems to mean covet, lust after, desire beyond a healthy amount. But still you can hear that these are very vague definitions of what this means to covet. So I'm going to propose a functional definition of what it means to obey this law. The first thing you need to know is that it is more than just wanting. So if you see that your neighbor has a nice yard and you're like, man, I wish my yard was that nice, that's not a breaking of the 10 commandments. There's something more to it than that. There's something more objectifying and more mean-spirited than that. So I'm going to propose that the word covet ultimately is the opposite of empathy. And here's what I mean by that. When you practice empathy, when you genuinely care for someone and they say, I got a great promotion at work, good empathy is to get in the boat with them and say, you're excited about this new thing that's going well in your life, and that's how I feel too. I feel excited with you. I feel joy because you're doing well. Similarly, if something goes tragic, if let's say a loved one dies, then you get into the boat with them. Good empathy says you feel sadness and loss around the death of your loved one. I feel that sadness with you. I'm sad because you're sad. This is good empathy, and we should practice it. It's a good Christian thing to do and be. So make it a practice to do that. Coveting is the corruption of that. It's kind of the opposite. You got a promotion at work. Must be nice. It's not feeling good and joy with them. It's feeling bad. It's wanting things to go worse for them because things are going well for them. There's an element of maliciousness involved in coveting. The other nasty side effect of covetous feelings is that it turns people into their objects. It quite literally objectifies them. It takes away their human value, which, as we've discussed in the previous videos, the Ten Commandments is ultimately really about lifting up human value and the divine presence, the image of God imprinted on every single human being. Coveting does the opposite. It turns them into their things. Tom's got a new car. Why can't I get a new car? Tom's now not my friend who I love, but is only a person who's competing for resources, and the car is the thing that identifies them in my heart. And like, that's a really nasty way to treat other people and think about other people, and it leads us down really devastating, damaging, horrific paths if we give into it. The final side effect I want to talk about is that covetous feelings ultimately prevent us from experiencing gratitude. So when we see somebody doing better and we don't celebrate with them and we don't feel good for them, and instead we feel malicious towards them, we feel bad feelings and we wish them worse, we have this Schadenfreude kind of effect. I want things to go bad for you and I hope they do. When we do that, what we're missing out on is the appreciation and gratitude for the things that we have. And this is more dangerous than people think it is. I don't know if you've ever experienced this, but sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night and I have just unexplained anxiety. I don't know if you've ever experienced unexplained anxiety. Like, there's no immediate threat. There's nothing that's challenging me. There's nothing that I really need to be worried about immediately, but my heart's racing and I'm feeling anxious for no real good reason. The best way to combat that is gratitude, is to start listing the things that you're really, really appreciating and thankful for. And covetous behavior, it starts to corrupt that. It gets in the way of it. Instead of saying, I'm so thankful, this is a wonderful house and I'm so glad we're living here. I'm so glad I'm sleeping next to my wife who loves me and I love her. I'm so glad that we have enough food in the fridge that even people 100 years ago would blush with embarrassment over how much food we have in our fridge. Instead of being grateful and expressing appreciation and gratitude, covetous nature turns us into hateful, mean things. And why don't I have what I want? Despite the fact that we've probably got more than people even 50 or 100 years ago had. Why aren't I doing better? How come so-and-so is doing better than me? They turn us into mean, spiteful, depressed, anxious, bad-feeling people. The quickest way to experience joy in this life is to start practicing gratitude, and covetous behavior and covetous thoughts exactly do the opposite. They turn us away from those things. So, if you're struggling with anxiety or ends not being met to your satisfaction, you might be experiencing covet behavior. You might be looking at people who you perceive to be doing better than you and saying, why not me? Why can't I have that? Instead, I think the solution, start looking at the things you have that you love. Start looking at the things you have that people for thousands of generations before us didn't have. Start appreciating, I can buy some of the best butter in the world for under $5 at the grocery store. And when I taste it and put it on a piece of bread, that is a joy that few people have in this history of this world been able to experience, but I get to. So there is plenty to be thankful for. There's plenty to be grateful for. And there's no need to focus on the people who have more than you. Start focusing on the things that you have. Start focusing on the things that you are grateful for. And I think you will find joy quicker than you think so. I've been the Mad Pastor. This has been the entire 10 Commandments. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you. May the Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. Amen.